Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. I want to continue going through the builds for my Heretic run that we're doing in the live stream, and definitely one of the pillars of that group is going to be Idira. Really looking forward to how her story works out. Let's go ahead and dive into the build. So Idira is an unsanctioned psyker. You can only be a sanctioned psyker. So right out the bat, she's going to have some things that you don't have access to. Now, being an unsanctioned psyker means that all of her psychic powers have a 5% chance to trigger perils of the warp. Usually these are small things like just a bit of damage or you hear a rustling in the wind, but every so often it will mean that she'll summon in a demonic creature, or she might end up doing so much damage to herself that she kills herself, things of that nature. So this is just part of having a psyker on the team. You've got to roll with the punches. But in addition to this, her psyker powers are resolved as if they were one psi level higher, which is fantastic and really helps her to pump out more damage. Now, another way that she differs from you is that she can unlock 2 psyker categories on level 1, whereas you are only able to unlock 1 category. She has divination, and this is actually going to play a role when you're roaming in the world, because she'll be able to let you know that enemies are about to ambush you, which when combat starts will allow you to still move your characters, whereas if you didn't have her in your party, you would be ambushed and unable to move right at the start of combat. In addition to this, you're going to get the feature Forewarning, which is going to increase the dodge and parry of one character by an amount that scales with her perception bonus and psi rating until the end of combat. This is obviously a fantastic defensive buff that a lot of your party members can really benefit from. Now, she's also going to have the telepathy category, which is going to give you Psychic Shriek. Now, Psychic Shriek is going to deal damage that scales with your willpower bonus and your psi rating. And overall, as far as single target damage, it's probably the best psyker ability to have right at the beginning of the game. So all of that together means in the vast majority of situations, Idira is going to pump out more damaging psyker abilities and more powerful psyker abilities than your main character is able to if they are also a psyker. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, she also has Humanity's Finest, and it's been added into willpower. So her willpower bonus is definitely substantial. Now, before we get into the archetype talents, I want to note I don't have any items or anything attached on to her since I did a dogmatic run. I'm not sure what type of items I'm going to use for her. I got rid of a lot of the items that are related to heresy, but she comes with a psychic staff, and this has a lightning arc, which is definitely going to be your bread and butter power when you want to damage multiple enemies. It's going to arc out and hit up to, I think, 4 enemies in a 3-cell radius, and that damage is going to scale with your psi rating and willpower bonus. You can get more powerful versions of this staff that will give you a heroic act version of lightning arc, and just throughout the entire game, it's really a nice option for her to have in addition to the other ones that we'll talk about later. All right, so now let's dig into her archetype. She starts out as an operative, and they get Analyze Enemy, which means at the start of each turn, she's going to inflict 1 stack of exploit effect on all enemies within her line of sight. And then if she hits that target, she's going to deal additional damage equal to 5 times her perception bonus. The damage is also increased by 10% for each exploit on the target. This is absolutely a fantastic way to debuff enemies. You also get an ability version of this that you can place on enemies to give them even more exploits. All the way around, fantastic to have. At level 2, she automatically takes the awareness skill. That doesn't really help us because we're going to have her focus on some other skills, but it's there, so we'll just have to deal with it. And then she also gets exposed weakness. You can use this on enemies who already have exploits on them, and it's going to decrease their dodge, parry, and armor by a percentage amount that's equal to 10 plus the amount of exploit stacks the enemy had times your perception bonus, and it'll do that until the start of the operative's next turn. We're not going to use this all that much because we have Cassia on the team, and she's going to handle a lot of the debuffing that we need, But if we need, for whatever reason, to reduce an enemy's defenses further, exposed weakness is absolutely a fantastic option. And then at level 4, she's going to get dismantling attack. We don't need to talk about this. You should never, ever, ever be using this heroic act. You should either be using the one from your staff, or you should allow one of your party members to use their heroic act instead. Now, level 4 is also where we can start choosing talents, and the first one I would take is passive learning. On your first turn, you're going to randomly distribute the same number of exploits as using analyzed enemies among all enemies in a 10-cell radius around you. This is going to help to ensure that those exploits are stacking on top of enemies and giving you a lot more damage. At your next level, you get to increase your first characteristic, and I would definitely start with willpower. We're going to be focusing on psyker abilities. And then for our first common talent, I would go ahead and pick up stabilizing factor, which is going to ensure that each psyker power she uses is going to decrease veil degradation by 2 points less. All psyker powers increase veil degradation, which again can cause terrible effects like bringing in chaos monsters. You're going to have to deal with that with Idira, but stabilizing factor is going to help to ensure you deal with it a little bit less. And then on your next turn, take second sight. Anytime you use psychic powers that have a range of 2 cells or more, their range is going to be increased by your perception bonus. We definitely plan to stack perception high, so Idira is really going to be able to hit those far out targets. And then for your first ability, take Dominate. This is going to force an enemy to pass a willpower resistance test, but if they fail it, they're going to have to use all of their movement points towards moving as close as they can to you. I really like using this for those far out targets that the game loves to throw out towards you that are snipers or ranged combatants, and it gives you the option to pull them in closer so that some of your other characters will be able to deal damage to them easier. It's not going to be all that important in late Act 2 or further in the game, but in Act 1, there are definitely multiple situations where this will really help you. And then afterwards, you get to choose your first skill, and I'm going to have Idira focus on Lore Warp. And then for your next talent, I would take Uncanny Sight. This is going to allow you to inflict an exploit on enemies even if you cannot see them, which is obviously very helpful. And then for your first ability, pick up Dominate. It's going to force enemies to pass a willpower resistance test. And if they fail it, they have to use all of their movement points to move as close as possible to you on their next turn. This is very useful to deal with snipers and faraway creatures that some of your party members will have trouble hitting. You're not going to care about this that much when you get into Act 2, but in Act 1, this is going to be absolutely very useful. So we go ahead and pick it up here. And then you're also going to be able to choose your first skill, and we're going to use Idira to increase Lore Warp. And then for your next talent, pick up Second Sight, which is going to trigger for all your psychic powers that have a range of 2 cells or more, and increase that range by an amount equal to your perception bonus. Very nice. And then for your next talent, take Tide of Excellence. Every time you trigger an exploit on an enemy, you're going to gain +1 damage and +2% armor penetration until the end of combat, and this bonus stacks. After that, pick up Second Sight, which is going to trigger for psychic powers that have a range of 2 cells or more and increase their range by an amount equal to your perception bonus. Next up, you can no longer increase Lore Warp, so we're going to go ahead and focus on Lore Imperium. Idira is going to increase intelligence a little bit, and so she'll get a higher stat in Lore Imperium than some of your other characters. Next up, you can't increase Lore Warp anymore, so I would go ahead and start increasing awareness. Always helps to have multiple team members who have high awareness, and we're going to be building up perception, so we might as well take this as well. And speaking of which, you can no longer increase willpower, so might as well switch over to perception. For your next talent, take Fresh Target. Whenever you attack an enemy that has full wounds, that attack is going to receive a percentage bonus to damage equal to 10 plus your perception bonus. On your next level, you can increase Lore Warp or Awareness, so might as well focus on Metakai. For your next ability, take Prescience. It's going to let you provide a bonus in Intelligence, Perception, Fellowship, and Willpower to one friendly creature, and this bonus is going to scale with your psi rating. It can absolutely get to massive levels, and that buff in Willpower can help you, or Cassia, or Commander Highlander, or whoever else might need it. And on that same level, go ahead and take Psi Rating 1. It's definitely going to help increase the potency of your powers. And on your next level, take ballistics calculation. If you attack a target that's affected by an exploit from a distance of 15 minus your perception bonus cells or farther, that attack deals 15% more damage. This should be triggering all the time, so absolutely pick it up. On the next level, you can't increase perception anymore, so go ahead and pick up intelligence. And then also take the enforced reality talent. Every usage of heroic act by you decreases veil degradation by 3. All right, now we're in Bounty Hunter. And the reason we like Bounty Hunter is because you get to mark enemies as prey. Now you're going to get buffs when your prey is killed. And what kind of buff you get depends upon the difficulty tier of the enemy. 1 through 2, you're going to get additional temporary wounds. 3 through 4, you're going to get additional critical damage and critical hit chance that scales with the prey's difficulty tier. And if you kill any difficulty tiers above that, you're going to get both bonuses. So absolutely, this is a great way to really make yourself more effective. And you can choose 3 enemies as prey at the start of combat. Commander High Slanderer is also going to be a bounty hunter, so she's going to be throwing out 3 of these, and they can be used between bounty hunters the same way exploits can be used between different operatives. So there's going to be a lot of synergy with bounty hunter on this team. And then for your first ability, we're going to actually go ahead and unlock Pyromancy because we want Idira to be able to assist with burning as many enemies as possible. So by unlocking Pyromancy, she'll be able to use Pyromancy staffs and the Inferno Heroic Act so that she can benefit from what Commander High Slanderer is doing, or she can help to make sure that when High Slanderer's turn comes back around, she is even more powerful. And for the first talent, we're going to take Savor the Kill. Every time prey is killed by an ally, Idira is going to gain an extra turn with half of her movement points and action points. Now, the bounty hunter cannot attack during this extra turn, but actually, the attack is only for weapons. It does not stop you from using Psyker attacks. That might be a bug, but even if it is, it means that Idira will be able to use some of her buffs or some of the other things that she's able to do in order to make the team more powerful. So just all the way around, this is great to have. On the next level, you get Wild Hunt, the Heroic Act. We're not going to talk about it at all because you're never going to use it. And then on your next level, you're going to get an increase of AP by 1. This is absolutely fantastic for your action economy. And your ability to increase characteristics has been refreshed. So go ahead and circle back to Willpower. And on that same level, you're definitely going to want to take Psi Rating 2 to make your Psyker abilities even more powerful. And then for your next talent, take Pain Channeling. Whenever you kill an enemy with a psychic power dealing more damage than the target's wounds, the excess damage will be dealt to the enemy closest to the target. That's going to become really important in a minute. And then for your next ability, take Psychic Assault. Everyone within a 7-cell cone in front of you suffers Psychic Shriek damage and is forced to make a willpower resistance test. If they fail that test, they are stunned until your next turn. This is the creme de la creme of Idira's build. And you could potentially make the case that it's the most power psychic ability in the game, since obviously it's doing really nice damage while also debuffing enemies. So Idira is going to use this left and right. When it's important to get more enemies burning, she'll of course be able to use a Pyromancy staff, but most times she's going to want to take advantage of this, especially since she has other talents that benefit from using mental damage. For your next talent, take Power Conduit. After triggering Psychic Phenomena, which should be happening all the time, for the first time each turn, your psychic powers are going to cost 1 less action point. Absolutely, we will want this. And on that same level will be your first opportunity to increase skills, so go ahead and circle back to Lower Warp. On your next level, you can't increase willpower anymore, so start increasing perception. And also pick up Psychic Barrage. When you're damaging enemies that are 6 cells or farther from you, the targets are going to suffer additional damage that scales with your ballistic skill bonus. It's only going to be +3, but every little bit helps. Next up, take Backdraft. When you use a psychic power that deals damage, a random enemy within 2 cells from the initial target is going to suffer half that damage. Obviously, this is really going to help you when enemies are closely knit together. For your next talent, take Weak Hearts. Enemies suffering from blinded, stunned, which you should be doing all the time, immobilized, or prone effects inflicted by you suffer 10% more damage. You're not able to increase Lower Warp anymore, so go ahead and switch over to Awareness. And you're not able to increase Perception anymore, so go ahead and switch over to Intelligence. For your next level, take Psi Rating 3. which obviously is going to pump up the damage of your psychic abilities even more. And then for your next ability, take Orchestrate Flames. This is going to cause one enemy to no longer make tests to stop burning. So they have no choice. They have to continue burning. Very, very effective against some bosses. And we're not taking this for a Commander High Slanderer, so there's a need for someone to have it. For your next level, take Mind Siege. Enemies that have failed a willpower resistance test against you will suffer additional mental damage that scales with your psi rating every time they suffer mental damage until the end of combat. For your talent after that, take Inspiring Trophy. Whenever you kill prey whose difficulty tier is 4 or higher, you're going to gain additional 2 action points. By this point in the game, you should be facing those type of enemies all the time, so absolutely, you'll be able to trigger this on a regular basis. And then for your next talent, take Blazing Inferno. Your critical hit chance is going to increase by 1% until the end of combat every time you deal damage by any means. All right, and that wraps up everything for the first 2 archetypes. As always, there are links in the description to go over my breakdowns of Operative and Bounty Hunter mechanics, and I've included a link that goes over Psyker mechanics as well. There's a link to the spreadsheet that has all of the talents that I've selected, so I'm not going to go deep into what I would take for Exemplar, but I will say for my very first talent here, I would go ahead and pick up Malign Influence. Obviously, all those mental attacking powers you use, they attack an enemy's willpower, so it'll trigger this and cause the enemies to take additional direct damage that scales with your willpower bonus. Very, very powerful stuff. And that's it. That's Idira's full build. Once again, I'll circle back to this once I've actually completed the game and let you know if I would make any changes along with what items I ended up outfitting her with. But overall, I feel very, very confident that this setup is going to allow me to get through the game. So let me know your feedback down in the comments below. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.